Now this is the essay, 3-paragraph essay. It's very short here in a Word document, you know, because it's different when you do it handwritten. It will look longer. Now this is my title, center of the page, my favorite hobbies. Do you remember when I've said that such titles are cliché? You have to choose an interesting and attractive title. Maybe we will think about the title when we finish discussing the rest of the essay. Now let's look at the introduction. Now you are saved the trouble of writing or thinking of the sentences that will go into the introduction. Why? Because you have written the specific outline in which you have stated what's your hook and the connecting information you're going to use and your thesis. So just copy and paste them. So I don't like to be pressured by work. This could be one sentence to introduce the thing there. Sometimes I search for a way out of all the troubles I face at work through self-expression or reading. You remember, this is the hook. Taking up a hobby is the best way to handle all the pressures we face. This is what? This is the connecting information. For me, I found that I love reading novels and writing poetry, and I think I have to make this a bit larger. Yes, it's better to use it this way. Now let's go to the second. This would be the first paragraph. I have only the hook, the connecting information, and my thesis, and if we can just color them, it will be very clear. Sometimes I search for a way out. This would be my hook. Taking up a hobby is the best way to handle all the stress we face. This would be the connecting information I'm going to use. And finally, for me, I found that I love reading novels and writing poetry. This would be my thesis. So colored and revised quickly. Everything is okay with the introduction. I will move to the body paragraph. Now please don't forget the essay format and the paragraph formats inside your essays. You have to leave a space here, 5-letter space, and start afresh there. After that, I spent much of my time or my spare time reading novels. This would introduce my first idea. If you remember, we will go back to the presentation, the outline. Reading novels. Now I want to tell my reader that I am going to write about my hobby, which is reading novels. So I spend much of my spare time reading novels. I read short novels. This again is part of the presentation. Okay, I will tell him that I'm reading short novels, and I will talk about English and Arabic novels. I spend much of my spare time reading novels. I read short novels. I read English novels about war, life and death. I read Arabic novels about war, life and death. I like detective novels. This is the other idea. I read Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. This is one of his best novel series. I read Agatha Christie's detective novels. Writing poetry. This is the B, number B in my outline. Writing poetry is my favorite hobby. I started writing poetry when I was 10 years old. I read my poetry in school celebrations. I read my poetry in front of family gatherings. And I have to be sure now, do you see the confusion here? When I've read this sentence, I read my poetry in school celebration. This is a past event. I have to emphasize the fact that it's past tense. I read my poetry in front of family gathering. This would maybe indicate again the past, or it could refer to the present. Maybe I'm still reading in front of family gatherings. I have to be specific about that. I write poetry about different topics. I write poetry about nature. I write poetry about war. Now let's revise this again. You notice, number one, the absence of transitional signals. Number two, repetition. There are a lot of structures which are repeated. Let's see of some of these structures which are repeated, redundant. I read short novels, I read English novels, I read Arabic novels. So all these structures are repeated. I have to eliminate this ugly repetition. Again, I have this repetition of a whole phrase. I read English novels about war, life and death. I read Arabic novels about war, life and death. And if you remember earlier when we discussed how to improve the essay structure or the essay, or even when you write paragraphs, you have to edit your paragraph, to edit your essay, to edit any piece of writing you write. So for now we are going to fix some of these defective style structures we are using. Now, I spend much of my spare time reading novels. I read short novels. Now I have to add a transition here, maybe something like I spend much of my spare time reading novels. I read short novels. For example, I can add for example. For example, I read short novels. And I can even modify something here in the verb phrase. I read short novels. For example, I prefer reading short novels. This is a bit better than what was previously. I read English novels about war, life and death. I read Arabic novels about war, life and death. Do you remember when we've said that we can make our sentences into compound sentences or complex sentences, and in this way improve their quality, improve the way they look inside our essays or paragraphs? Okay, let's try that. I read English novels about war, life and death. I read Arabic novels about war, life and death. Okay, I can say, actually, I have to add a transition here. Actually, I read English novels about war. I read English and Arabic novels, okay, about war, life and death. We can say here, we can improve the quality of the sentence. I read English and Arabic novels which deal, we can say, which deal with war, life and death. These are the themes I want to refer to, so I can say, use the word themes here, which deal with themes of war, life and death. This is a bit better. For example, I prefer reading short novels. Actually, I read English and Arabic novels which deal with themes of war, life and death. Now we can just eliminate or cancel this sentence. I read Arabic novels about war, life and death, because it was made into a compound sentence with the previous one. Now, I like detective novels. See the repetition of the structure. I like, I spend, I prefer. I can change that with the addition of some transitional signals. Now, I like detective novels. I can say, for instance, or sometimes I can change the structure of the sentence. One of the novel genres, a genre here is a type, you can say, one of the novel types or kinds. A genre here is the word specifically used with literary genres, for instance. So one of the novel genres I read a lot about, or I read a lot about. Novel genres I read a lot about is